Who am I going to pick on today? I know who I'm going to pick on. Wait for us to show up here. Directing, redirecting, and it's already being broadcast. And come on, LinkedIn. There we go. Everybody wave hello.
30 seconds.
30 seconds. Okay. Anybody want to sing or dance? We have 30 seconds. We can't have dead air here. Who am I going to pick on today? Let's see. I'm going to pick on Bob, who just moved, and he's a brave soul, and you moved to Idaho, right, Bob? Okay.
I moved from Idaho back to California.
From Idaho back to California. I got it right. I kept thinking about Idaho. Bob, behave yourself. There we go. Okay,
5
Michael, let's
seconds,
have the
send you that feed.
Thank you. Got to make them smile.
Where does yesterday's future, which is already here, meet today's future, which is about to happen, and tomorrow's future, which could be just minutes away? Welcome to Technology Revolution, the future of now, where host Bonnie D. Graham asks savvy futurists for their predictions about the tech-driven trends that are shaping our future right now. Here's your host, who will take us into the future of now, Bonnie D. Graham.
Thank you to the voice who introduces me, Bonnie D. in the house. Happy to be here. It's Wednesday, June. What? Are we really almost halfway through 2024? I'm vaguely remembering New Year's Eve. We said, oh, thank goodness we're all still here. We have a year to look forward to. Hope it's a better one. And now we're almost halfway through. We'll do that assessment in a couple months. Today, I have invited back my esteemed panelists. I call them my stargazers. Gentlemen, don't be offended, please. They are futurists. They are prognosticators. That's a terrible word. Looking at the uses of AI that may or may not surprise us. Those of you in our global audience, and welcome everybody. We might have some ideas for you about how you can use AI in your business or not, in your personal life or not. I've asked my guests to scour the AI verse. Is that a new term? Can I coin that one? I think I can. The AI verse. Yes. And we're not going to talk about Apple's new announcement of Apple Intelligence, although that's an interesting use of the letter A, isn't it always? Yes. So we're going to get started. I have a poem, as always. And by the way, Dan Geller, this is a memo for you. Remember, you said you don't need to be polite to ChatGPT or Gemini. You don't need to say please and thank you. Well, nice girl from New York, I still do. But I have a shocking announcement for you, Dan, and everybody. The response time of ChatGPT is now 1 second. I have barely hit the enter submit button with all my guest bios and all the information, huge amount of text, and it already has sent me back that poem. Shocking and amazement. It went from 3 seconds to 2.25 in 1 second. And I still say please and thank you, Dan. So there, you can use that. Okay, everybody, here's the poem for today. I have some history in this one. Queen Latifah, an icon grand, rapper turned actress, multi-awards in her hand. In the world of AI, she now has her say, helping Lenovo Evolve Small give minority businesses their day. Nervous like all, she admits with grace, now her digital avatar finds its place. Customized videos with her AI voice are there, making sure her image is used with care. That's my pre-poem intro. Bob, is that news to you? Anybody heard that in the news? Goldrich, did you hear that? Or nobody? Martin? Dan? Nobody? Oh, I'm certainly up on my my entertainment news. So welcome to Technology Revolution. Bonnie D and her scarlet mic are flowing on the radio. 4 futurists join me today on Tech Revolution Radio. They're predicting the AI future of business and for play. Here we go. Dan Geller, wave furiously hello, with marketing finesse, guides SMBs with AI's caress. Are you caressing AI, Dan? Innovating brands like Ram and more with strategic AI, he helps them soar. Bob Ficken, HR seasoned guide, navigates fortune's ebb and its tide. From startups to giants, he's led them through with AI on the horizon, all new. Martin Stenzig in the enterprise domain blends tech with vision, a master's refrain, driving innovation and adoption as well. AI and tech are his stories to tell. And Michael J. Goldrich, who wants to be called Goldrich today, AI's trailblazing sage. In digital realms, he pens the page, transforming hospitality industry's allure with predictive personalization designed to endure. I hope you like that, Mr. Goldrich. With Bonnie D and guests, the stage is set to explore AI surprises yet. In business and daily life, its wonders will unfold here on Technology Revolution's airwaves. Behold, behold, behold. What'd you think? You like it? Do I get a thumbs up? Let's see if the thumbs up still works. Okay, there we go. We got the bubbles here. We should get more than that. Okay. Now, I want to do a quick introduction of each of you. We don't need a full bio because I promise, I read the audienceometer this morning, or audienceometer, and everybody remembers the four of you because you were just on in, let's see, you did part one in, when was it, March 12th, I believe? Yes, it was March 12th. I'm sorry, April 13th. That was just about 8 weeks ago. So let's go around the table, quick bio, minute and a half or so. What have you been up to in the world of AI specifically? Dan Geller, you're up. Talk to me.
Doing a lot of stuff with AI. I work with a lot of corporations, mostly small, medium-sized businesses. And so AI means different things to different companies, different people. There's a part that's kind of an education component, but once people begin to understand the power of what they can do, there's a lot of strategy and then builds. And so when we talk about builds, perhaps we'll talk about some of that stuff today, but there's a lot of automations and things that you can bring to business. I think, for example, obviously a lot of people have heard about things like content automations and things like that. But to be honest, my background is a creative director. And so I'm really actually jazzed by when you think about what you can creatively do to a business for a business and help. And so when you start looking at all the things that AI can do, there's a lot of work that can happen where it fundamentally creates tremendous business assets for businesses, where it speeds up their work. It makes it easier for their employees to get their work done and put more time towards creative thinking and more thoughtful thinking about how their business grows. So I really enjoy that stuff. I'm doing those things for a number of businesses and obviously looking to support more businesses and individuals because this is just very cool stuff.
Very cool. And you used the word jazzed about AI. I haven't heard that yet. I like that. If I ever start a new radio show on tech or AI only, I'm going to call it Jazzed About AI. Okay. And
Okay.
I'll give you the credit for that. Thank you. I'm in that kind of a mood today. Thank you, Dan. Bob Ficken, back in California, where he loves. Bob, hooray. Bob, talk to us. What's an update besides your big move? Talk.
Oh, geez. Let's see. We're still seeing, and Dan can correct me if the number's off, but we're still seeing 10 to 20 new large language models every day. And it's amazing what they can do now. Every day there's something that comes out that I just go, what? They can do that? It's pretty amazing. So, I'm certainly seeing it reach its tentacles out into education more and more, and it's way overdue. We're seeing it in HR more and more, where we're using it to schedule interviews, to evaluate candidates, to send auto emails thanking them for their application, and all those kinds of things. So it's pretty amazing, and I think there's just an entire panoramic view of what it's going to do for us over the next few years. We're just not that far from the Jetsons.
Watch out, look up, see who's landing. Yes, we've been talking about that too. Thank you very much, Bob, and welcome back. Martin, world traveler. You're in a place that starts with a B. Why don't you tell us where you are and what you've been up to? Martin Stenzig, welcome back.
Today, live out of Barcelona, Spain. No, but in the enterprise domain, it's very interesting. I mean, everything is AI, so everybody's jumping on the bandwagon, that's for sure. But in all reality, we're seeing tremendous efficiency improvements on the one side. So we're covering the efficiency domain by supporting development, supporting transcriptions of meetings. All of that is going on, and we'll see more and more. Certainly, everybody's jumping on the large language model bandwagon, but by embedding their own sort of content into it. So, every company now is sort of feeding it with their special content to have, an adjusted large language model so that, theirs is optimized for their programming language, their, consulting solution, et cetera, et cetera. So that's very interesting. And then back to what Dan was saying and building on that, just on the generative side, so creating documentation, creating documents, especially on project documentations, we'll see dramatic improvements and sort of interesting situations where I predict that customers will come to us and saying, hey, how much effort can you actually take out of a project, because all the documentation should be pretty much automatic now. So you have access to the system. The large language models can use that as an input vector. And all the paper views that we created for years and years and years is going to come out pretty much on the fly, and you can regenerate it if you want to, if you change some of the data. So really, really cool stuff.
Thank you very much. We've got jazzed and cool. I like that so far. Mr. Goldrich, the reason we're calling you Goldrich is because my engineer today is Michael, and I got the two of you. I didn't get you confused, but you both answered at the same time. I'm going to go back to
Yeah.
calling you Michael, okay? So we're less formal.
That's fine. That's fine.
Michael
I've been actually,
J. Yeah, go ahead.
I've been on a call where there are like 7 Michaels, so we had to like, figure out how to differentiate ourselves. Numbers, last names, you know. So I'm used to the Michael thing. I don't turn when someone says Michael. I don't turn till I hear it a second time.
Welcome
So
back. Talk to us. What have you been up to?
so what I've been well, next week is huge. It actually in 2 weeks is huge for the hospitality industry, which I'm in. It's a giant conference in which you have hotel sales, marketing, and revenue managers get together, as well as the hotel tech side. And so last year when I was on the stage, I was talking about 1 year. It was literally a year ago. I said 1 year from today, every one of you is going to be impacted by this technology. The level of impact will depend on your particular roles. Now I'm going back and I'm presenting again, but this time instead of just one person talking, there are about 6 or 7 different breakout sessions with a keynote as well. So the hotel industry, whenever you see examples by Google or by OpenAI, they always show like a travel, like, oh, it can do a recommendations. Oh, look, it can look at your email and your schedule, and it can put together an itinerary. The hospitality industry, really, there's a match for this type of technology. And the thing is, the customer journey, because again, it's all about the customer. Really, this kind of technology can help remove friction, and removing friction is what's really important for travel. And so that is what this technology can do for marketers, and what we'll talk a little bit about today, I gather. How's that, Bonnie?
That's wonderful. Thank you and welcome all back. I appreciate how busy you all are in your business lives and your personal lives. And I'm always honored. Dan, you got to stay awake. Dan, I'm always honored that you take the time to join me. And I hope you know that I appreciate you. So, enough gratitude here. I'll thank you after we have our amazing, surprising predictions. Let's do the quotes very quickly here. Dan Geller came up with a new quote under duress. We had to go back and forth on this, but we got a great one. You all remember, I think, 1985, the start of a comedy sci-fi film franchise, Back to the Future? Yes. Well, there are so many scenes where these words have been used, but I found a video of several of them. So Doc Emmett Brown, played by the wonderful Christopher Lloyd, says, "Great Scott." What did he say that 1,000 times in the movie? And Marty McFly, played by the wonderful, still wonderful Michael J. Fox, says, "I know this is heavy." And there are different contexts for that. So Great Scott. So, Dan, talk to me. How does this apply to our topic? 2 minutes. Go ahead.
This I can take it in less than 2 minutes. This is exactly to the point that Bob was saying before. Literally every single day, something comes out. It's been as long as AI has been around in the news, which has been about a year and a half or so, and it's going to keep happening. And something new comes out, and to anybody who's paying attention, they might exalt, "Great Scott, this is heavy." But the reality is, after a while, there's a little bit of fatigue, right? Because it's just the impact that some of these solutions make and the way they cross over industries is really heavy. I think that the challenge is and at least that I'm seeing is like injecting this into businesses and people. I think that people like us are paying attention and it is heavy, but I think a lot of people are getting left behind because they're just not looking, and there's a little bit of fatigue because this stuff keeps coming out. I'm a little concerned from all the investors and all the businesses that are pouring a lot of mind share and effort into building out these solutions. Because let's face it, if I'm a marketing guy, right? If they don't have enough uptake, if there's not a lot of adoption of these technologies, then that $100 million spend or more to build out that solution may go down the tubes. And these are really amazing things that are happening. So we're in this unusual place where we're learning new things every day, and we're trying to get the world to use them. And hopefully there'll be some use of these things, and people will realize the impact that it can bring to their lives.
Thank you very much. Can I add another F word? A good one. You said fatigue. What about a little bit of fear? Isn't there still some fear, Dan? There's still a lot of naysayers and doom and gloomers, I call them, who are saying, it's going to end humanity. It's going to kill jobs. So isn't there still a little bit of that trepidation / fear?
I think so, but I think the thing is that listen, I think that there are some real fears for which I might talk about today, but I think that if we get to that, I think that actually there's probably more fatigue. I think
Okay,
that there's such opportunity. And so nobody really knows what's going to happen and how this is
sure.
actually going to take out in effect. So I think some of those fears are a little irrational and unknown, whereas the fatigue is real. Like we are literally being inundated with stories every day. So I think the fatigue is actually more real than the fear.
And we'll put fear in its place. Thank you very much. You're now the fear therapist. I appreciate the AI fear therapist. Okay, Martin likes that. Martin, at least somebody has to like my jokes. I appreciate you. I think they're sort of laughing. Bob Ficken, let's look at your quote for now. I want everybody to know that Bob is the only one, I think one out of about the last 500 guests on all of my shows who has quoted Taylor Swift. I'm not sure how or why, but he is up on Taylor's
Boy,
newest
am I catching heck from my friends.
I bet. Well, I'm not going to
I
catch you,
mean,
heck. I'm just going to tell you, I thought this was very refreshing. He is quoting a song from her brand new album, Tortured Poets. I'm a poet, but I try not to be tortured. Wednesday is poetry day, and I think I'm okay. The song that he has picked is My Boy Only Breaks His Favorite Toys. Let me just read a little background before I get to the quote. A poignant anthem that explores the complexities of love and loss, using the motif and metaphor of broken toys. A dark mid-tempo electro-pop song built over powerful sputtering, trap influenced electronic drums. That's a mouthful. The song takes place in the perspective of a child's toy being somebody's favorite until they break you, and then they don't want to play with you anymore. A metaphor for a rusted relationship someone is yearning to bring back to its days of being shiny and new. Bob, did you know all that? Probably you did. Here's the quote by
Sure.
here's the here's the quote Bob has picked. Puzzle pieces in the dead of night. Oh, Bob, can you make this happy for us, please? Martin can't wait. Go ahead. I told you to behave. Now I'm not sure. Go ahead, Bob.
Well, I mean, it just goes back to what Dan and I have been kind of both talking about, which is, you hear about these large language models during the day and this NVIDIA doing this and Apple doing that and whatever. Then you go to bed and you wake up and all of a sudden there's like 10, 20 new things. It's like, well, now who did that in the middle of the night? You know, it's just amazing. It's like you take a nap and wake up and there's 5 new large language models. But I have good news for pet owners. I just read this morning, that's how new it is, that researchers are now using AI to try to be able to accurately state what pets are saying to us.
No.
Yes.
I don't know if I want that.
No. No.
I've heard they've done it with
Translated.
Baby cries to interpret what the baby means.
Oh my, well, are there any hallucinations involved on the part of the AI, Bob? It's like the dog's wagging its tail at half the metronome speed. It must be happy. Thank you. I enjoyed my breakfast. A quarter of the metronome speed. Could you put a little sugar on that? I mean, is it interpretive? What do you think?
I mean, no one knows where. That's the whole generative part of AI. No one knows where it's going to go.
That's true. So I can tell my daughter to stop telling her dogs, use your words. That's what she tells her dogs.
Talk to your parrot much more carefully.
Well, Bob, that's a lovely way to take a Taylor Swift quote in. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Martin, let's go to you. I think Back to the Future is the source of the day here. Martin has picked a quote again from Doc Emmett Brown, played by Christopher Lloyd. Let's see. With his dog Einstein in the driver's seat, Doc tells Marty McFly, if my calculations are correct, when this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're going to see some serious. Okay, Martin, I sort of whispered the word. Go ahead. You're up.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can't compete with Bob's Swifty backing, but no, in all seriousness, I think we haven't seen the end of this. As Dan and Bob pointed out, there's new things coming every day, and I think we're just on the on ramp. We haven't even seen the escalation. I also agree with Dan that I think it's sort of we're getting into this mindset of, okay, you're over AIing everything now, and everybody thinks they have to jump on the bandwagon, even though it's with solid half knowledge most of the time. So people getting to this tiredness of saying, okay, everything is AI now. Yeah, whether or not you are refilling your car, it's AI based, or you're eating a sandwich and suddenly somebody throws AI into the mix just because it seems like it sells more. But the good news is I think there's still a lot of room to maneuver. And I think we still see some really, really good stuff coming. And we're not even close to the end. So on the business side, we're going to see dramatic improvements, not just on the large language model, but if you combine large language models with other machine learning functionalities, I think that's when it's getting really exciting. So
thank you very much. Back to that fatigue theme a little bit in there. Thank you very much, Martin. Let's go to Michael J. I'll leave the Goldrich off. Let's see what your quote is for today. Oh, this is a serious one. Everybody remember the Twilight Zone? Well, if anybody remembers season 1, episode 23, it was called A World of Difference. And Michael has picked a quote from Rod Serling, the voice of the narrator. Let me just give you the setup for the show for that episode. Arthur Curtis is a successful businessman planning a vacation to San Francisco with his loving wife, Marion. He arrives at his office, his telephone is not working, and he hears somebody yell, "Cut!" He discovers his office is a movie set on a soundstage. He is told that Arthur is just a character he is playing, and his real identity, in quotes, is Gerald Reagan, Raigan, a declining movie star involved in a brutal divorce from his hostile ex-wife Nora, and he is also battling his own alcoholism. The studio thinks he's faking mental illness to avoid his responsibilities. The director warns him he will be fired if he leaves, but he goes home. Outside, he's nearly hit by a car driven by Nora, the crazed ex-wife, who demands the divorce settlement money, but he says, "I don't know who Nora is." They leave together in the car. So here is the line. I hope you don't mind, Michael. I love doing my research. You know that. Here is the line Michael has selected from Rod Serling in his wonderful voice, which I cannot do in the opening. We will see how thin a line separates that which we assume to be real with that manufactured inside of a mind. Oh, I wish I had music from that show. That's kind of creepy. Okay, Michael, talk to us. How'd you find this?
Well, I thought about what I wanted to present, and so I found it. So one of the things I've been playing around with lately are sort of like these AI actresses. So these are people that have allowed themselves to be recorded saying a number of different things, and then they make themselves available where you could then make them say anything you want. They become essentially virtual puppets. And so it's a fine line. Like some people can think that it's real. Some people think it's completely generated. It is not completely clear. I've had a SAG person reach out to me criticizing this as taking away jobs of actors. And I said, well, actually, it was an actor that chose to get themselves recorded and then just gave up their likeness, gave up their control of this. So I've got a number of these. I've done about 4 or 5 of these already. And so it's, as the technology gets better, like right now, I can just control what they say and kind of how it sounds. But eventually, I'll be able to control their hand gestures. I'll be able to control the facial expressions, and you won't know what is real and what isn't real very soon. And so, ergo, I chose that quote.
Thank you very much. It's very, very interesting, Michael, because that leads into the prediction that I had picked for Dan for this part 2 of our conversation. Dan, I'm giving you a choice in the chat of which one. I think Michael stole the thunder on that, which is fine, which is absolutely fine. So Dan, I'm giving you a choice of the 2 business predictions. I'll read them both and you pick which one you want to talk about. The first one was Ashton Kutcher and other celebrities will license their likeness to AI studios, hoping to get ahead of the onslaught of soon-to-be-released AI movies and games. That was one. The other one is on a very serious note. The UN will make a recommendation to put caps on the growth of AI, especially since it puts significant demands on the world's available energy resources. I'm going to stop there. Dan, which one would you like to talk about? Giving you a choice here.
I want to go with the second one. I think it's more serious. I think that the first
That's
one is a no-brainer. I think that it's going to happen. How soon? So on the second one, there's been a bunch of articles. So I think it's important. This is not I do think that something like this will happen. So everybody that's listening should know that while AI is absolutely amazing, the power that it takes to run these big server farms, these GPUs, is tremendous. I don't want to necessarily say how much because I've heard different stories from different experts, but I've heard that it's a vast amount of heat that's basically put out. Somebody I was speaking with the other day was suggesting that the next release of OpenAI, like ChatGPT 5, could consume, just for building out that model, 1/3 of what the US consumes in energy every day, just for the AI model. Now, is that true? I don't know. But if you think about the amount of energy that puts off just to run these huge server farms, the reality is that there are people like Sam Altman that are looking for energy sources like their own nuclear facilities that he has an investment in order to power all these places. But so we have these engines that can do amazing things now, right? AI can basically do all these incredible things, but there's a cost, and the cost is the basically heat that goes into the environment. I think we're going to get to a place where we're going to have some, leadership by scientists and mathematicians and governments that say, listen, there's a cost. We need to figure a way to measure this cost, and we're going to make a recommendation, which is like what I was saying, where we have to offset some of these benefits. And so, does that mean that corporations that are using a lot of AI, like Microsoft or OpenAI, are going to have to pay for carbon credits or do something more? I would hope so, but I think it's a pretty serious thing. It may not come down to the individual level, like, without being cynical, the oil industry has put it on individuals to say, well, drive less, when the reality is the thing is that all the carbon that's going up in the environment is probably more on the industrial level than on the individual level, although I think each of us have some responsibility. But I think that it's probably likely that we're going to have to look at that equation soon, because I don't think AI is going away. And I think that we need to protect the world we live in.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. I had a pitch from somebody to do a show on the energy involved in AI, and I decided not to dedicate a whole show to that, because it's something that needs to be considered, that it will be considered, that we will have to live with and deal with at some point in the future. But I want to talk about the benefits, assuming that we will figure out how to power AI, if I can say that. I'm going to make that positivity prediction that we will figure it out, like we have so many other new innovations that take a look at Bitcoin, look at blockchain, look at the energy uses that are coming in that we've been dealing with for years. So I'm going to predict that we'll figure it out. Thank you, Dan. Very interesting. Anybody have a quick comment on what Dan predicted before I move on?
I just saw this image of nuclear AI run through my head, and it scared the hell out of me.
That wasn't the word you wanted to use. There you go.
Wait.
Bob, speaking of you, let's go to your prediction. This is another interesting one. Bob says the federal NOAA has opened the NOAA Center for Artificial Intelligence. It is increasingly using AI to better predict storms and more. Eventually, AI will replace our past conception of weather. What about meteorologists? Will they be out of a job? By putting real life weather warnings instantly out to all smartphones in the affected zip codes. That's a wow, Bob. Give us a little more detail, please.
Well, to me, you have to start with the beginning, which is it's kind of amazing to me, and I think probably most of everyone on the panel, that a government agency is out in the forefront of this kind of thing. Because usually governments, colleges, universities, there are whole industries that are pretty slow to change. But in this case, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Agency is way out ahead of the game. And they've been working for some time now on this to try to use AI to better predict and be 100% accurate in their prediction of storms and weather anomalies, and be able to get warnings out so much faster. In fact, sending them out in real time, whether it's to your phone or to your AI pin you're wearing on your clothing, or your earbuds, or wherever it is you decide you want to receive that kind of information. So really, you won't need to watch the news or the weather reports anymore. Anytime there's any kind of a change by more than a degree or whatever setting you choose, right, you'll be instantly notified of that change and that possibility and the percentage of it and all that. It's going to
Very
be
interesting.
pretty
Yeah, go ahead. It's the question is, we all know we've taken at one point or another the predictions of meteorologists with all their charts and their magic walls, though that's something else. We've all taken them and said, but they said it was going to rain. I say to Alexa sometimes in the afternoon, but you said it was going to rain at 2:00. It's 4:00 and it's still sunny and beautiful. When is it going to rain? Do I need an umbrella? Well, I got 3 in my car, so I'll be okay. I've asked her and she says, beautiful weather. It's a sunny day, 85% of sunshine. What will I tell? And on and on and on. So the enigma there, if I can use that word, is how much will we be able to trust these AI generated, AI informed weather forecasts, Bob, any better than
yeah.
meteorologists? Go ahead.
their efforts are to make it as close to 100% accurate as possible. Now, I don't know that they'll get there. On the other hand, I have no doubt that they'll get there at some point. Now how long that's going to take and how many iterations it's going to take, we don't know. But I mean, if you think about it, some of it's perspective, right? We all kind of joke about how often the weather people and the meteorologists are wrong. Yet a baseball hitter that only makes contact and gets on base one out of every three at bats is an all-star.
There you go. It's all about the odds.
Right.
The prediction I would love to know is when we're going to have flash power outages. For example, I'm in Tennessee, near Knoxville, in Loudon. I won't get any more specific than that. And we had two flash outages last week that came, one about 6:30 in the morning and one about 8:30 in the morning, and they lasted less than 2 seconds. However, modem went down with router. Mac had to be restarted, right? Everything had to wait for the modem to come back up and connect. Luckily, I wasn't on the radio. Of course, the clock on the microwave and the stove had to be reset, which are not fun anymore. I don't worry about anything else, but it's just a little inconvenience. But gee, it would have been nice to know on a beautiful sunny day with no weather on the horizon, no weather issues, we were going to have a power outage, right? Now, a year ago, December, our local power company decided to cycle power because we were down at around 20 degrees and 10 degrees below because they wanted the overload on the grid for heat. So they decided to do cycled outages. Well, we didn't have a warning about that. So here you are sitting in your house. I just moved in. I'm sitting here on a beautiful sunny Saturday morning, 8:30 in the morning. All of a sudden here, whoosh, and the whole house goes dark. And it lasted 45 minutes. Well, wouldn't it have been nice? Yeah, I know. Wouldn't it have been nice to know at the 5 minutes before that if you're baking something or if you were doing something on the computer? So I love to have it plugged into that. I don't know if Noah can talk to the electrical grid there, Bob, but that would be my wish. Anybody else have any wishes and hopes for that one for predicting weather or outages? Anybody? Nope. Okay, we're going to move on. Martin, you alluded to this one a little bit when you did your introduction, but I think you have some more to say on it. Martin says, we'll be able to shrink down the initial app development. We're talking business apps here from days to mere minutes by describing the app you want, and it will build a user interface, business logic, database content, and integration to existing systems. Refinements will still be needed, but the question is, how much spec development do I really need to do? Oh, Martin, be still my heart as a former programmer. Talk to me.
Yeah, and listen, we had this, what you see is what you get for a while, and you can click and cluck around and suddenly an application is generated. But this takes it a one step further. What we are doing, what we're seeing now in sort of all kind of business development cycles is that the initial development time to sort of build a shrink wrap business application that is not just the user interface, and we could do that for ages, but really has all the implementation logic and all the connectivity all wrapped up in mere minutes, really. I mean, and we sort of demoed something last week, and it was 16 minutes in order to develop a ready set app that you can deploy to the cloud, case closed. And it's working. So now you're going back to the drawing board. You're saying, why am I writing a functional spec for 3 days if the development only takes 15 minutes? Why am I not just sort of, and this is where we're getting to, putting a smart prompt together that says, okay, I need an app that contains whatever travel information, and it should store this, and it hands over these information to that backend. Go, and suddenly you have at least the starting point for an app. Yeah, it's usually you get to 85%, and then there's always the 15% that you need to adjust. But especially that initial, what we call scaffolding, the initial app that you need, we're reducing dramatically. So it has, follow-on effects on, how do you utilize developers? Which developers do you really need in the future? How do you educate juniors to become seniors quicker? What kind of documentation should we still do, which compared to what is actually created automatically on the fly? So will have a dramatic effect on the industry. So no, I'm not saying that developers will lose their jobs, by no means, because what we're also seeing is interesting effects and that was to somebody mentioned that earlier, bad data in, bad data out. I just had a scenario where, I used 3 different language models to try to get a problem solved, and they all suggested the wrong same answer. And it's because all these models were trained on the same content on the web, and that content is just either outdated or bad. So the good news was you got a consistent answer. The bad news was all 3 of them were completely wrong. Yeah. So those are the things where, senior and principal developers will always be there and always will need to be there in order to know what's right and what's wrong. And maybe dovetailing into what Dan said, that's really the worry that I have as sort of a seasoned manager. Don't let AI generate something and then just merely execute it, because if you don't know what's going to happen when you light the fuse, you better not try it, because there's some really ugly results that might come out of it. But yeah, efficiency wise, we're seeing tremendous gains. And also back to what Dan said, I don't think management talent these days, at least not existing senior leaders, understand the capabilities that we have at our fingertips right now. I think we're still sort of crawling our way through the possibilities of where and how we can create more efficient companies. So we're going to have another 10 years of really interesting and exciting discussions around this matter, as in where do we utilize it in order to really drive efficiency? Where do we say that sort of we've pushed the limits, but it's not good enough? All kinds of discussions. So really, really interesting stuff.
That's exciting times ahead, isn't it, Martin, for people entering that industry? If we're talking about the broad industry of development and coding and business planning, there's nothing wrong with excitement, and there's nothing wrong with challenges and question marks, because that's what keeps people engaged and involved, and they feel like they're making a difference and they're doing something, and maybe they're even part of history. So there you go. I went from being a coder in COBOL on a Xerox Sigma 6 CP5 mainframe using a key punch machine. And I was used to carrying around a box with 2,000 Hollerith 80-column cards and never dropping it. And then we got dumb monitors where we could enter the code and we didn't have to carry those damn cards around anymore. But I knew my programs. And one night, my operator at one of the jobs I was on called me at 3 a.m. He said, "Hey, Bonnie, we had an append to card number 345." And I said, "Read me the card before and the card after." And he did. And I said, "Okay, go back 5 cards, put in this control on the operator's console, and I will sit on the edge of my bed in the dark here at 3:45 in the morning, and I'll stay up for exactly 5 minutes. If it doesn't work, call me back. If you don't call me back, I'm going back to sleep." And it worked because I knew my stuff. So I don't know if that's something in the cards. Can I use that word, Martin? Something in the cards for future app designers who really know what is in. Anyway, that's enough. But I wanted to give a little background there. So there, my fond memories of being and I loved what
I thought I was in heaven when I got my first HP 12C.
There you
calculator.
go. There you go. I want to move on. Michael Goldrich, I'm looking at your prediction number 3. This is from part 1. We didn't use it, and it's interesting. You say 24/7. You're predicting 24/7 on-demand SME C-suite team, accessing expert-level advice and guidance from a specialized SME subject matter expert, available around the clock to address critical business challenges and strategic decisions. And this is our last business prediction. We're going to go to the personal ones next. So, Mr. Goldrich, talk to me.
All right. So I you know what? I sort of cheated. This is not a prediction. This is reality. So my book here this is what I talk about, how you can do this. Everyone can do this. So sort of not a prediction. It's real, but no one knows about it. So I predict people will start to do it. So I think that's fair. That's fair.
It's a prediction. So talk to me about it. What does it mean?
So here's an example. So small businesses, one of the challenges they have are subject matter experts to help guide them in areas. So whether it's marketing, finance, or law. So let's take law, for example. So you're creating a special offer, and you always need to have the terms and conditions in which you protect yourself. So imagine, instead of waiting for the attorney to give you, like, say, 10 billable hours to kind of help clean it up, that you have your own 3 virtual lawyers. So let's use the hotel industry, for example. So say you have a hotel franchisee attorney look at it, a hotel brand attorney look at it, and then also a guest lawyer. So one that will defend a guest against fraud. So you have all three of those sort of virtual personas looking through a terms and conditions line by line, giving the recommendations as to where are the gotchas for each of these things. Now you take that output and you bring it to a real lawyer. So now instead of them starting at 0 all the way to 10, they're starting at 8. So you can reduce billable hours significantly. So that's an example of how you can use this technology, and it's very, very powerful. I mean, using it as sort of like a CMO in terms of coming up with a market plan or all that, that is great. But the true power is if you create a chief marketing officer and maybe a chief financial officer, and then you have a problem saying, I have X amount of budget to spend. I need to get awareness. Can the two of you help me figure this out? You load them up, you give them distinct sort of backgrounds based on whatever your company is, and they'll talk through it. And you can have them challenge each other as well. So in the actual window, through the context, back and forth, you can see them debating with you along the way. It's a lot of fun, very interesting, and I think powerful.
Fun and interesting. I like both of those. Thank you very much. There is a little element of fun in there somewhere, I think, in these threads, I hope. Bob, comment, quick, go.
Just to quickly, there's first of all, there's more and more companies all the time using decision-making AI support to make big business decisions. And I think that's pretty interesting. And then the second one is that when AI first got really going the last couple of years, one of the first industries and occupations they said they could fully send to AI was the law, because they can feed every case, every court decision into it. And that large language model specializing in law will actually know the law better than a human could.
Can I just make a point, Bonnie?
Yes, please, go ahead.
It's tying together what Michael just said and what Martin said before. So I said earlier that one of the things that we offer is education. The reality is that it's not just education, like how to use AI, like how to bring in AI. It's actually how to work with it. And so, like, to Martin's point, I actually hope, I mean, I'm very much like a humanist. I very much hope that corporations grow where they realize that the experts in-house, like Martin, should be using these tools intelligently by bringing in tools like what Michael's talking about, and then learn what they can inject in them and then how they can carry them forward. So if that happens and they start adapting to these tool sets, yes, they get to that like level 8 that Michael's talking about. But then you have the human in the loop, to use the expression. That's the expert. That's the person that's caring about the business, that knows the facts that are on the ground, that knows their supporters, and can make a decision that's human-based, based on the environment. And it's that coupling that will take the business not to the level of where they were at a cheaper cost, but exponentially grow the business. So I think when I talk about education, I'm really jazzed to do that kind of thing. We're helping people not only understand what AI can do, but also how they should be using it to get better results. So
I couldn't agree more, Dan. And just to build on that, whoever worked with a lot of lawyers knows that you give the same document to 2 lawyers, they will always find something to improve on it. So back to your point, Dan, I think it's that seniority that you need to bring to the table to say, okay, this is what I intended. Yes, I got your views from the different lawyers, but at the end of the day, you need to be the tiebreaker in a sense, because otherwise, you will have these 2 models fight each other all day, if nothing else, to represent, real lawyers that will always find 16 things in order to charge you 3 additional hours. So yeah, I'm totally with you.
And listen, in medicine, you go to 2 or 3 different specialists. Chances are they're going to come up with different diagnoses, different things to look for based on past frustrations or roadblocks in a patient's health. So it's going to happen in a lot of it already is. Thank you, gentlemen. Let's see if we can quickly buzz through some personal surprising AI uses. I've got one in the chat for Dan and one for Bob, and I'll put in one for Martin and Michael in a minute. So Dan, this is interesting. You predict AI-free zones. You say resorts and leisure travel business will market and establish AI-free zones that bring people an authentic experience free of anything generated by AI. I guess this is the flip side of wow. People will come to get away from a constant barrage of generated content. News about Mr. Altman or silly emojis. I like my silly emojis. I like my Bitmojis better. Dan, where will these be? Will this all be virtual? Talk to us briefly, 2 minutes, because
Well,
we have a lot to do. Go ahead.
this is a stretch, but I don't think it's too far a stretch. I think that we're already seeing on like inline, social media and stuff, we're already getting the fatigue of seeing too many AI generated images. Michael was talking earlier about, that he's using this service that has these like digital actresses. I think at some point there's going to be this kind of lack of trust, right? They're already are talking about how what we're going to see in the election was going to be a lot of fraud with what we're going to come up and what's going to be Biden, what's going to be Trump, and so on and so forth. I think that there's going to be a lot of fatigue. And I think that so I think that what happens is entrepreneurs and businesses will look at that, will take a measure of what that is and say, is there a place that we can use that fatigue and turn it towards something that people want to have? They want to have the opposite, right? They want to get away. I think I've worked in travel and leisure. I've worked at, high-end resorts. I think that actually what will happen is that some of these businesses will say that we're a place where you can get away from this. And that means being more attuned to like the self, real things, no digital, no AI, real human experiences. That's what I would suspect. And actually, I would sign up for that. I think that's a great thing. I think AI is a great thing. I think digital is a great thing, but I think we should also find a way to turn it off.
Thank you. Well, people talk about being unplugged, don't they? We've talked about people who go off the grid, so to speak. I know people who still don't own a cell phone, and I know people in business who have no social media footprint, nothing. No Facebook, no LinkedIn, no Insta, nothing. They do not exist, but they're in business, multiple businesses, entrepreneurs. They just choose. So it's interesting. AI free zone, electronics free zone. Oh my goodness gracious. I'd like to be in a lawnmower and blower free zone once in a while. My neighbors love their power tools. Let's not go there. Okay, here we go. Let's see. I've got from Bob. I just put one in the chat for you, Martin, for next. Let's go real brief. We got 10 minutes left. So Bob Ficken, personal prediction within 3 years. People will be able to take virtual vacations without ever leaving home using AI and VR. Experts state users will not be able to easily discern reality from what they see and experience. How is that different from using a VR headset today and going places? Bob, what's the difference? Talk to me.
The difference is it's going to get closer and closer to reality, right? And then we've kind of been talking about that a little bit because, to Michael's point about this already being available to some degree, right? You can put on VR goggles right now and go anywhere you want, right? Using your goggles and all that, and one of the large language models. But what's going to happen is, as it gets better and better, and you have to remember that it's getting better every day, every hour, every day, every week, every month, it's getting better and better. And its goal is to be as realistic as possible. So what we're going to see over the next 3 years is that VR and AI are going to combine to make that whole experience as real as possible. And we're going to get to the point where, just like today, when you pick up a photo, right? You have no idea if that photo is real or if it was AI generated. That's a change we've seen in the last few years, right? You can't make the assumption it's real anymore. Well, that's the same thing that's going to happen with travel. And I don't know what's going to happen with travel agents and travel agencies.
Mm-hmm.
Is it going to be you can strap on the goggles and then you'll feel just like you're in Belize or wherever. You're going to be able to smell it. You're going to be able to touch it. You're going to be able to, hear the waves. You're going to be able to, it's going to be the whole experience. And it's going to be so real that you really won't be able to tell the difference between that and the reality of physically being there.
Very, very interesting. I wasn't aware of that. The depth at which you're talking, Bob, has to be significantly different from, as we say, wearing a headset. And how many here have bought the new Apple headset that's what, $3,900?
Why would you put the Google one's 300 and so?
Oh, I've got the old whatever the Quest one sitting here on the shelf. It's still plugged in once in a while, and the handsets are battery fresh. But I haven't used it. It just gives me a headache. It's too heavy. I think Leonard Lee. Some of you may know him. He's been on the show several times. He got a demo copy of a demo one, And I said to him, when you're done with it, could I have it? And he said, no, his wife is lined up to have his when he's done. But he did a full review and it was pretty good, but not in my budget. Thank you very much. I'd rather redo my kitchen. What can I say that much? Let's go to Martin, your prediction number one for personal for this show. We got real quick now, minute and a half, 2 minutes, and Michael too, and then we'll finish. AI in fall detection. We're not talking spring, summer, winter, fall. We're talking, Martin says, as his parents are getting older, he wants a solution for possible falling. In the past, you had to employ a special service, and that would not even detect the fall. Today, you have watches that can detect the fall and automatically initiate a call for help, an SOS. Martin,
Yeah.
2 minutes, go.
Yeah, I mean the reality is pretty simple. You know, my mom stumbled over a root, lay in the backyard. Nobody knew about it. She didn't want to yell out and pull together the neighborhood, so she was lying there for an hour waiting for my dad to come. So those are the scenarios where you just say, okay, next time we'll just put a watch on her that actually detects the fall right away and can call a number, so that you don't have this scenario where she obviously has a phone, but I guess given that she's the older generation, the phone is lying very well and very safeguarded in the kitchen, and is completely useless at that point in time. So what are we doing? But this is sort of the great uses I see for AI and sensors in combination with AI to say, okay, yes, there's some privacy concerns, but I'll take the privacy concerns any day if I can make sure is that my mom gets the attention if and when she needs it, and in a timely fashion. So I mean, it could have been way worse. So yeah, that's kind of what we're going to do, and that's kind of how we're going to use AI for good.
Interesting. I'd like to see an app that would, this is going to sound very, very morbid, but for people who live alone and don't have anybody checking in on them, and I'm not talking about seniors necessarily, how would somebody know if something happened, if you passed away in your sleep or you had a serious trip or fall? How would anybody know if nobody is delivering anything or nobody is coming for dinner or nobody is expecting you to show up for an appointment? Who would know? I have a deal with my neighbors across the street here, and I said, if anything happens to me, who would know? I could be here for days without a radio show. Nobody would know where I was. Dan, I'm sorry to make you sad. He's laughing. But my neighbor said to me, you always open the middle window shade in the morning in your middle bedroom. And I said, yes, I do. They said, if you don't open that shade by 10 o'clock in the morning, we may think something's wrong and we'll come and break down your goddamn door and make sure you're okay. And I said, go ahead. I gave them the code to the alarm. I said, if you break the door, here's the code to the alarm system. Anyway, that would be interesting. And that's a very far stretch on privacy, isn't it? What if you're just sleeping 4 minutes? Anyway, it's another concern. But Martin, thank you for bringing that up about falls. We're going to close this part of the show with Michael Goldrich. Number prediction from personal. You say original master AI learning, transformed by harnessing the power of AI to connect learners directly with the creators of knowledge. A minute and a half, Michael. Make it fast, please. Go ahead. I can't wait.
Yeah. So imagine Sir Isaac Newton. So you want to learn about gravity. So instead of just learning from a textbook, you can kind of bring to life Sir Isaac Newton in his essence. And if you load up sort of his autobiography, you can kind of give him his smarts and everything, and you can ask him all about it, how he came about it, and he could tell the story directly to you and help you understand it and speak to you. So I think it's not just Sir Isaac Newton, it's Warren Buffett. You can kind of learn directly from him and you'll be able to embody him, or politics, or learn about strategy from Machiavelli or Sun Tzu or what have you. You can just learn directly from the ones that derive the knowledge, and they can teach you. So there you go. Super fast.
Michael, can you imagine how this could overhaul education in communities where there is very little parental involvement? Bob, this is for you as well.
Right.
Communities where there's little interest in education, where there's a high dropout rate. Can you imagine enabling kids to say, don't just read Dickens, talk to Dickens on AI and find out why he wrote that. What was going on? What was life like? What were they wearing and eating and thinking in the days when he wrote those stories? Tale of Two Cities. What was going on?
Right.
Imagine if you could talk to Beethoven and that thing your piano teacher's trying to get you to learn on the piano. For God's sake, oh, it's old music. I don't want to learn it. Maybe there's something about his life that would inspire. Can you imagine overhauling
It's actually Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, where they actually brought them back, but they were talking about San Dimas instead of, they could actually talk about what they're really all about.
I think that could just overhaul the education system in terms of making learning jazzed up, Dan, and fun, where kids would say, I didn't just have to read that 300-page book. I got to learn what it was all about. And I talked to a voice that may have sounded like so-and-so, Shakespeare or Einstein or somebody. And I'm excited because I know stuff about that person. I can imagine it would make school fascinating. Even from the early elementary ages, we just need to
Well, I mean,
fund. We need
to
to go ahead.
Michael's point and to yours, Bonnie, the big change is when you incorporate that many senses, right? You're getting to 4 or more senses with that kind of teaching. Retention more than doubles from the 30th percentile to the 70th percentile. It's going to be
You go.
incredible.
Incredible. It's going to be incredible. I want to thank my 4 guests. I want you to put up your finger and you're going to wag with me on the count of 3. Come on. You've already done this before. People say the future is already here. And on the count of 3, we're going to say no, no, no. And our answer is 1, 2, 3. No,
No.
no, no, no. Just more no, no, no. That's because the future, it may feel like it, but it's not here yet. As we talked about today, there's so much happening in the realm of business, so much happening in the realm of personal. It's not just AI, it's all kinds of discoveries and sciences around us. So much is happening. Grasp it, appreciate it, learn from it, and make it better. Bonnie D signing off. Wave goodbye, everybody. Michael at Voice America, are we out yet?